I have a problem. I love playing games, but I have way too many of them to play and I just keep buying more. I'm going to make a video about every game I complete to discuss what I think about it as incentive to work through them. This is Backlogged. I'm not the biggest Zelda fan, something I freely admit. I've played plenty of Zelda games. The issue is that I haven't played many to completion outside of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I decided recently that I was going to try and work through my backlog of games, which is what has led to this series, but separately I also decided to make a list of all the games I own, including on Switch Online, and then use a random number generator to decide which game I will play. The first game that came up due to this was Minish Cap, which I was initially a little disappointed in because, well, it's just a Zelda game. I know those aren't my speed. Besides, I'd started playing this one before and never really felt any inclination to continue. However, if I just refuse to give a game a chance, that defeats the point of me even selecting games in this way, so I figured I may as well give it another shot. Minish Cap is a great game for sure. I found myself enjoying it from pretty early on, thanks in part to the central mechanic of being able to shrink yourself to a minuscule size. This opens up so many possibilities in terms of both exploration and puzzles, and it uses both of those to full effect. However, I will say that as it took me a long time to realise that you could use the cane of Patchy to flip pots upside down and create shrinking spots, I wasn't able to fully utilise this for most of the game. I think this comes around to one of my main criticisms of the game. Not everything was telegraphed appropriately. Obviously, as puzzles are a major element of Zelda games, they can't just give you the answers, but often it felt like the information you were given wasn't substantial to be able to figure out what you were supposed to do, or the solution didn't really seem to follow any logic you could have figured out without just trying to use every item on everything in the room. I had to use a guide for an alarming amount of this game, which I generally hate doing. There is, of course, a significant chance that I'm just an idiot though, so that's worth noting, but I just found a lot of the game frustrating for that reason. Same goes for the difficulty of some dungeons and bosses. Sometimes the bosses had attacks that just felt too difficult to avoid, and there wasn't enough of an animation tell to differentiate between a move your sword can block and one that will one-shot you through shields. Looking at you, Darknuts. I also found at least one dungeon incredibly frustrating in terms of giving you long stretches of stuff to do with no checkpoints. I also found health often just didn't spawn, and that felt kinda unfair a lot of the time. I have also heard many consider this game too easy though, so maybe I'm just bad at video games. This is also where my criticisms end. Even through the obtuseness of the puzzles, the ones that weren't too cryptic were very fun and satisfying. And beating the bosses was always a relief when I got there. The game was very charming, with a bright, vibrant art style that adds more evidence to my belief that the GBA has some of the nicest looking games that have aged incredibly well. I didn't find Eslo annoying, and just in general, I think the characters, minor NPCs included, were all pretty fun. Vati was a great villain, if a little underutilised, but that's to be expected. The world itself was great, especially when you enter the small world. Seeing everything from a smaller perspective was fascinating, and the Minish helped flesh that side of it out. Oh, and the bosses that are just giant enemies were a fantastic addition. Overall, it isn't my favourite Zelda game. That would still be Tears of the Kingdom, but the fact that I finished this game at all, where I never finished Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, Skyward Sword, Majora's Mask, and so on, demonstrates that it was engaging enough to keep me hooked. I'm definitely glad I gave this one a go.